Hello YouTube, my name's Nero, and today we use some Call of Duty Advanced Warfare in this week's episode of Dear Nero, which is the weekly series here on my channel where you guys send me in fan mail and or fan questions, and I do my best to go ahead and answer them. That's the whole point. It's a Q&A series. We've been doing it for hundreds of weeks now. Man, we are up in the 120s, somewhere in there now, which is pretty crazy. This series has been going on for this long. I remember I first initially started Dear Nero probably halfway through or towards the back end of Modern Warfare 3, just to give you guys a little bit of insight as to how long this series has been going on. Every Wednesday, just about, I think I missed 1 or 2 weeks, but just about every Wednesday, we do another episode of Dear Nero. Got some good questions this week, so let's go ahead and hop into them, because the whole point of the series, it's your guys' questions and my answers to them. The first question is not going to be from specifically one person. I got the same general question about 20 times this week, so I figured I would go ahead and answer it. That question was, did you see that GTA 5 is going to be releasing their Heist? Are you excited about playing them, or are you done with that game? And that has been a question that a lot of people sent me for this week, so let's go ahead and talk about that. So Heists are something that a lot of people have been excited for, and wanting Grand Theft Auto 5 to release for a very long time. They advertised these in the pre-game launch trailers. It was something that really kind of, it sold me on the game just about. I couldn't really care less about the single player of Grand Theft Auto 5. I was really excited about the idea of playing it online and with my friends, and what Heist basically was going to be was exactly what it was in the single player, where you and people are going to go ahead and try to rob a bank, rob a jewelry store, pull off these things that give you really cool rewards. Now, the whole point of this was it was going to be very challenging. It was going to be a very challenging thing that you and, 4 other people or so have to all really work together. You have all have your assigned rules. You have to fulfill those rules perfectly to be able to pull off this mission. And if you do pull it off, you get a lot of awesome rewards. I thought it was a really cool idea, and I could not wait for it, so I bought Grand Theft Auto 5. Unfortunately, they did not actually have these at launch, even though before the game came out, they had trailers talking about the heist and advertising it as a part of the multiplayer. They did not have it at launch, and we're like, so they're probably going to wait a month. They're going to have everybody actually experience the single player, because of course they waited a little bit to actually release the online, so people actually would, not just skip the single player and actually go ahead and play it. They did that. We're like, alright, so maybe it'll be a few weeks. Then it turned to maybe it'll be a few months. Then it turned to maybe it'll be a few years. Then it turned to the point where now Grand Theft Auto 5 Online, not just Grand Theft Auto 5, but GTA Online, has been out for 443 days. Now, I don't actually keep track on my calendar, every single day I go up there and I just notch off another thing. Oh, it's been 1 more day since they haven't released Heist. No, there's actually a website called aretheheiststhereyet.com or aretheheistoutyet.com or something like that, and it actually keeps track of it for you and lets you know that Grand Theft Auto 5 Online has been out for 443 days at the time of this video going up, which is December 17th of 2014. It's been 443 days and Heists are still not out. That is false advertising, and I'm using my right as a consumer to protest this by not playing it. I'm not going to be purchasing this, or even if it's free or whatever it is, I'm not going to be playing it. I'm not going to be consuming it. It was a real scumbag move by Rockstar to sell these games on the premise that you could do these things and then not release them for 440 plus days. Picture this in your head, if you will. The next Treyarch game, right? It's the next Treyarch game. Let's just say, for all intents and purposes, it is going to be Black Ops 3. Now, Black Ops 3, we see some trailers. We see the single player trailer. Then we see the multiplayer trailer, similar to what we usually see from trailers in Call of Duty. And then they release a new trailer showing us some of the stuff that they're going to be doing with the brand new zombies, and we all get really excited for zombies. Then when the game comes out, there's no zombies. Even though they advertised it, there's no zombies whatsoever. You're just like, okay, maybe they're waiting a little bit to release it. Nope, there's just no zombies whatsoever. And then they keep on saying, oh, it's going to be coming soon. 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 Then before you know it, the new game, Black Ops 3, has been out for over a year, 443 days, and there's still no zombies. But they're like, oh no, don't worry, it's going to be coming out soon. We're getting real close now. See, we have a whole new trailer for you. Would you not be outraged at that? That's the exact same scenario with Grand Theft Auto 5, and I'm using my right as a consumer to not consume that product when they do finally release, assuming they actually do. I am not going to be playing that, because that is just a scumbag move by Rockstar, and I really kind of detest them as a company. Next question, he writes, Dear Nero, with PewDiePie being on South Park and the Fine Brothers getting a TV show, do you think YouTubers will become more mainstream entertainment? Craig from Cleveland. So Craig, that's an interesting one. It's one that could probably go on for about 20 minutes long, but I'm going to try and cut it down. YouTube itself is a very entertaining place. Of course, you guys are here. I'm on YouTube. You guys are on YouTube. We're all on YouTube. We kind of get it, right? We understand why YouTube is entertaining. We understand why gaming is fun. But there's a lot of people in the world that don't understand that. You see a lot of stuff now going on new shows and news sites, and just in the mainstream media itself. They're like, the flavor of the month right now is talking about competitive gaming and how popular gaming really is. You don't see them talking a whole lot about YouTube, but you definitely see them talking about the esports side of things. I think the reason for that is, one, Call of Duty was at the X Games, so that was definitely like a big thing into the mainstream media. And they also see stuff like Call of Duty esports people making tons of money. You see Optic Nadeshot is very popular right now, not just here on YouTube, he's been popular forever, but he's becoming popular in the mainstream media because so many people want to interview him because he's making freaking so much money doing competitive Call of Duty and doing YouTube and doing, well, he doesn't do Twitch anymore, he does MLG.TV, but live streaming and things of that nature, right? People are like, how do you can make money doing this? And a lot of YouTubers have done this. Like, the mainstream media is just now starting to catch up with where we were back in 2010. You know, they're finally just starting to understand this. It's interesting to watch these things. Like, I get linked to YouTube videos of people talking about different YouTubers stuff and have them on their shows and everything. It's interesting to see these gray-haired people just so baffled at the entire idea that people would like to watch other people play video games. I think that's pretty interesting that something like that could actually end up happening, because you think of sports, right? So growing up, I was really into football, right? I love American football, keep in mind. I loved football. I loved playing it, and it was such a big hobby of mine that I would also just consume any and all forms of media that involved the National Football League. I loved it. So I would play football, of course. You know, I played football after school. We'd have practice, we'd have games, whatever. Then I would come home, and we had a channel on our Dish network called NFL Network, right? And on here, if you guys are aware of that channel, they had a show called NFL Total Access. I think they still do, where basically it's kind of like SportsCenter in a way, but it's only for the NFL, and they only just talk about stuff in the NFL. Now, I'd watch like the entire show, and then they would like basically show that same show like on repeat periodically throughout the day, and I would watch it again periodically throughout the day and just like consume all forms because I was so into football. I still am, but not as much as I was growing up, and I was just really into it. I loved watching it, I loved talking about it, I loved playing it, I loved everything about it. And the same thing can be said about games like Call of Duty, can be said about games like League of Legends, any video game that you're into. The same thing can happen. You're just like, you're interested in it, you like to watch it. And I think YouTube itself is also a very personality based thing. You develop connections with these people. Like, initially you find a YouTuber, let's say for me, you find me because you were looking up something on Call of Duty. Chances are everyone watching this video, you found me because you decided one day to search up something in Call of Duty and my video popped up. Or you were watching another video and then my video showed up in the related videos and it looked interesting to you, so you clicked it, then you started watching me, and over time you have developed kind of like this connection to me in a way. Even though you never met me, you don't even really know that much about me, you are interested in me, you are invested in me, and that's a big part of YouTube. That's a big thing of it. And it's interesting to see these people outside of this space, outside of YouTube, outside of the entire gaming space, wondering why it is we like to watch video games. They really don't seem to understand it. And I think gaming itself is actually something that's a lot more constructive within the world than something like watching television. You think of watching television, you think of watching movies, you really kind of sit there, while you may be interested in it, you're really kind of sitting there like mindlessly watching it. You know, maybe for some parts, especially TV shows, you kind of space out, you're half paying attention, you're multitasking, you're on Facebook or on your tablet or whatever. Whereas gaming, you are actively using your brain throughout the entire thing. Like, you're making decisions, reflexes, and like you're paying attention, you're promoting a lot of brain activity. And I think gaming itself is actually really good in terms of that. I think it's actually stimulating a lot of brain growth, as much as people like to try and say the opposite happens when you play video games. I do feel as though it stimulates some form of brain growth because it just, you're constantly using your brain, you're constantly moving, you're constantly doing something, right? That's really one of the interesting things about gaming. And it just, once again, it's very interesting to see people finally starting to take an interest in this. Right now, it really seems to be kind of the flavor of the month, is talking about esports and competitive Call of Duty and things of that nature. And of course, PewDiePie has really kind of transcended YouTube famous to real life famous. He is, of course, the most popular channel on YouTube. And it's also very interesting that YouTube over the years has kind of been really unkind to gaming channels. They really don't try to promote gaming channels. They really, you know, something about YouTube and gaming, they really just kind of try to hold us back all the time, especially like getting videos up on the front page of YouTube and things of that nature. They really tried to stop gamers from doing that, but now a gamer, PewDiePie, is the #1 channel on YouTube. So now they're finally like, hey, let's start paying attention to gaming a little bit. And of course, South Park, every single episode of South Park, if you guys don't know, is made that week. Every single episode that they do is made within 1 week. That's why all of their episodes are always very topical. And so they did stuff on freemium games. Now they're doing stuff with, of course, with PewDiePie. They're basically doing stuff that a lot of people are talking about, and a lot of people are talking about YouTube and gaming and competitive Call of Duty and competitive esports in general. That's kind of like the flavor of the month, and that's the reason PewDiePie was probably on South Park. Of course, I wasn't in the office. I can't say why he was there, but that's probably the reason they decided to have PewDiePie on South Park. It's really kind of the flavor of the month right now, and a lot of news organizations are talking about it. So it is kind of cool that we're entering the mainstream of entertainment. Do I think YouTube will become necessarily mainstream entertainment? I think it's going to continue to grow. YouTube has never ceased to grow ever since the gaming community really kind of sprung up here on YouTube in the mid-2000s when YouTube was created. It has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown and grown every single year, and it's going to continue to do that. At one point we may plateau. We'll have to see if that'll ever happen, but right now we are just in a steady decade-long of growth, and it's definitely cool to be in this spot. I'm glad I got into YouTube when I did, because so, you know, as YouTube grows, I continue to grow, and I think that's gonna be kind of a fun thing to experience. And YouTube itself is pretty great. I definitely like it. But will YouTubers become in the more mainstream entertainment? I think we're gonna become more and more popular eventually. But I don't think people are ever gonna talk about YouTube channels the same way they talk about South Park, the same way they talk about The Simpsons. You're not gonna say, "Oh man, PewDiePie and The Simpsons," you know, right up there. Same thing. PewDiePie and The Simpsons or anything like that. I don't think that would ever happen necessarily, but I do think we're gonna continue to grow and continue to become more popular. But once again, it's definitely interesting to watch this progress. Next question, he writes, Dear Nero, do you consider the blast suppressor to be the new dead silence perk in Advanced Warfare? This person did not leave his or her name. So, Mr. Person did not leave his or her name. I do consider blast suppressor to be kind of like a spiritual successor to dead silence. Now, what I mean by that is, of course, they don't do the exact same thing, right? Dead silence silences your footsteps, make it so you can't be heard, whereas blast suppressor has nothing to do with your footsteps. It makes it so you do not show up on the minimap when you do your dashes and your double jumps and your strafes and all that stuff, right? So I do think it's a spiritual successor in that it's kind of a must-have perk if you're playing stuff like Search and Destroy. You're playing stuff like I don't know, smaller game modes, like Team Deathmatch, for example. Team Deathmatch is something that you don't want to be showing up on the mini-map, because in Domination, you could probably get away without using Blast Suppressor, because people are moving so much and flags are changing hands, and it's very hectic. Same thing goes for Momentum, same thing goes for Hardpoint, but in stuff like Team Deathmatch and in Search and Destroy, and of course Search and Rescue, things like that, I do think Blast Suppressor is the new must-have perk while you're playing those game modes, and before, Dead Silence filled that role. Before, Dead Silence for me was always the perk I had to use while playing Search and Destroy or Search and Rescue, or playing stuff like Team Deathmatch and Free For All. You always had to have it, and I still think you have to use Blast Suppressor in those situations. So I do think it is the spiritual successor to Dead Silence, yes. Next question, he writes, Dear Nero, and this is a long one, so try and stay with me. So in case you did not know, Steam has allowed people on the PC to play Advanced Warfare's multiplayer for free. It was on the weekend of December 13th. Now I'm hopping in right here. That's over. I don't think you can do that anymore. This question came in a few days ago, so you know people sending questions throughout the week. So this was sent in earlier on in the week, and I don't think this is happening anymore. But he's right. You were able to play Advanced Warfare on the PC for free over the weekend. Back to the question. Myself, I've never actually played Advanced Warfare, and it was so much fun, despite having some issues because my PC doesn't reach the minimum specifications, and it's just a little under what it's supposed to have. Not only that, but Steam puts a 25% discount on the full game. So do you think that Activision and Sledgehammer Games should let Steam do the same thing next year, and maybe even Xbox and PlayStation, so that they can increase their sales? Jonathan from Missouri, but originally from Florida. So Jonathan was right. They basically allowed you to play Advanced Warfare for free on Steam for a little bit, and that was kind of cool. It's almost like a demo in a way, right? And that's why I think it was pretty cool. They basically gave you the idea of a demo. Whatever happened to demos? You know, there's so many games that come out now that you're like, I'm not entirely positive whether or not I will actually enjoy this game. Of course, you can do your due diligence and your research, and you can look up the reviews on it. You can watch YouTube videos of it, but at the end of the day, you're not entirely positive once you get your hands on the game whether or not you will enjoy playing that game. And so because of that, demos always really seem to be like the go-to thing. Like if you are not sure whether or not you're going to like a game, play the demo, get some hands-on experience, see if you will actually enjoy this. The last game I bought that I wish I would have actually been able to have a demo for it was Civilization Beyond Earth. So I play a lot of Civ 5, or I have played a lot of Civilization 5. I think it's a really fun game. It's a turn-based strategy game, or actually, is it real-time strategy or turn-based? I'm pretty sure it's turn-based, but you and other players can take your turns at the same time. I don't know what you would classify it as. It's an RTS game. Let's just say that. It's an RTS game, and it's a lot of fun. Civilization 5 is a ton of fun. They came out with a new game of Civilization called Civilization Beyond Earth. It's the same exact concept, except now we're going up onto a brand new planet. There's aliens inhabiting this planet, and you got other people with their own agendas, and it's an interesting concept, but it just kind of further follows the theme that gaming has really gone along lately, is that everything needs to be be futuristic and in space, which you look at Call of Duty, futuristic. You look at the Borderlands, they had to go to the moon. You look at Beyond Earth, they had to go up to new planets, and Titanfall, of course, and just every new game that I'm interested in anyway always seems to be futuristic now. But I started playing this game. I wasn't sure I would like it as much as the original Civilization. I always thought that Civilization 5 was fun because you got to play as all these different empires. You could play, if, let's say for example, you chose to play as America. You chose to play as America and you were playing as George Washington. Let's say you wanted to play as England, you were playing as Queen Elizabeth. If you, let's say you wanted to play as Russia, you were playing as, was it Queen Catherine? I'm not sure if she went by Queen, but I know she went by Catherine. You got to play as all these people from history, right? And it was kind of cool, and you got to, like, you could play on Earth map, or you could play on random maps, or wherever you want to do. You start out in the Stone Age, you discover the wheel, you do all kinds of crazy stuff. I liked it because there was actually a little bit of historical value to the game. Whereas when you play Beyond Earth, you are already set in the future, you already know all this stuff, and basically all the stuff that you're creating futuristic style stuff. And I wasn't sure I would like that as much because it really doesn't fit the theme of Civilization for me. And I bought the game, I bought the whole game outright. I'm like, all right, let's try this out. And I'm still in my first game. I'm only 200 turns in, and I haven't touched it in probably a month because the game just doesn't draw to me. It doesn't call to me the same way that Civilization 5 did. So I wish I would have been able to play a demo for it just to see what it was like. Like a demo for Beyond Earth would be great. Like give us one game, give us one full match. You know, and maybe make it so it's accelerated so it doesn't take like a full 7 hours like most Civilization games do, but allow us to play a little bit of that game before we buy it. That way we can determine whether or not we actually want to buy it. But I think a lot of people are going away with demos because, one, it costs extra money. You got to put development time and resources into making a demo. And two, if people try out the demo and they don't like it, then they'll end up playing it. So they just release a full game and you end up buying it, and regardless of whether or not you like it, you still paid your money and they still got their money. So I feel as though that's probably the reason a lot of people don't do demos anymore. But yeah, I definitely think demos are a good thing. Allowing people to play a game for free, even for just a weekend, is a great way to try and boost up sales a little bit. I definitely think more things should be able to do that. And it's definitely cool they allowed you to play it on the PC because PC's numbers of Call of Duty have always been dreadful. So allowing people to try it out on their PC, see if they like it, and if they do like it, probably getting some sales out of it, I think it's definitely a good thing. And yeah, I think all platforms should do it. You mentioned Xbox and PlayStation. I think it'd be great if just about any game will allow you to play the game for free for like a day or something like that, just to try it out and see whether or not you would actually like it. I think people would find out that overall it would actually boost the sales of a lot of these different games because people, maybe they're kind of hesitant as to whether or not they want to buy the game. Well, if they can actually play it for free and try it out and then find out they do like it, if you actually have a good product there, then people will actually want to buy it after playing that demo of it. So yeah, definitely, I think they should do that. Next question, he writes, Dear Nero, when you started your YouTube channel, what equipment did you have and how long did it take for you to get noticed? From Andre in New Zealand. I get this question a lot, so I figured I would cover it. I'll try and cover it quickly because I talk about this kind of stuff a lot. On my YouTube channel, I started out with an HD PVR, the original HD PVR, not the HD PVR 2, that had component cables. And that was like the standard capture card back in the day, back in like, 2009, 2010, 2011. In that time frame, HD PVR was basically the standards, what everybody had. The microphone I had when I first started YouTube was some dinky Logitech, like, actual headset that had like a microphone to it, which don't ever try and make videos with that kind of stuff. It's awful. The audio quality was terrible. It was atrocious. It was just all around bad. And as I progressed, I ended up, I used the HD PVR for quite a bit, but then I eventually decided that I wanted to record in HDMI because I wanted to play in HDMI. I was tired of 720p component. I wanted to play in 1080p HDMI. It would have been a lot better that way, so I ended up doing that, but the HD PVR doesn't take HDMI, so of course I had to upgrade capture cards, which I got the AverMedia Live Gamer HD, and I've been using that ever since, although I'm thinking of upgrading from that already, so we'll have to see about that. Maybe I'll get the new AverMedia, maybe I'll get to the Elgato, what was the new Elgato? It's supposed to be 1080-60, right? So maybe we'll try that out, I don't know, but that's what I started with, was HD PVR. If you're looking, because usually this question is basically a disguised question for what should I get to start my YouTube channel. If you're wanting to start a YouTube channel, get an Elgato or an HD PVR 2. You definitely want something that records in HDMI. You can't go with dazzle quality like people started with back in the day or anything like that. You need like a minimum, you need an Elgato, or minimum, you need an HD PVR 2. Something that actually records in HDMI. You definitely need that. And in terms of microphone, don't just go buy a $20 microphone from Walmart that's attached to a headset. That's not going to work out. If you want a good starter microphone, I suggest the Blue Snowball. The things are stupidly cheap. I think you can get them for probably $30 sometimes even. even. They're very, very cheap. They're a pretty standard overall microphone, and they're pretty nice, and you should definitely try that out. That's a good microphone to have. And if you're just starting out, and especially if you're using something like a Blue Snowball, I definitely recommend downloading the program Audacity. It's a free program that you can download. Just Google it. It's called Audacity. You can download that, and basically it will allow you to remove background noise from your videos. So definitely do that. I still use Audacity to this day. I'm using it right now. I'm looking at it on my second monitor. There it is, recording Audacity. I see my voice popping up. Yes, I'm using that. So use Audacity. Do a YouTube search how to remove background noise. It's very simple. And the two things I recommend to you guys is either Elgato or the HD PBR2 as your starting capture cards, and a Blue Snowball microphone to start out. Next question, he writes, Dear Nero, what ethnicity are you? Your nationality is obviously American, and a sign for what we all know is that you're white. Where do your ancestors come from? And this person did not leave his or her name. So, I come from a long line of proud people that, I guess I'm just mainly white. I mean, most of my ancestors were English. So on my mom's side of the family, we have English and Irish for the most part. I have maybe some one or two people on like that side of the family may come from different places, but for the most part, like freaking like 99% of the people on my mom's side of the family are English and Irish. And my dad's side of the family is English. Is kind of mixed a little bit. It's mostly English, but it has a little bit of Native American and a little bit of Swedish in there. Just a little bit of that, like a little sprinkle. If I had to guess, probably 10% Native American, probably 10% Swedish, and probably 80% English on my dad's side, and probably 70% English, 30% Irish on my mom's side. So basically, I am English for the majority, and then Irish, Swedish, and Native American a little bit. So not really a whole lot there. Some people have like a million different nationalities in their background. I'm not really that. It's mostly just English. Next question, he writes, Dear Nero, what class do you think is the most OP in Hearthstone? Phoenix from California. So Phoenix, no particular class I would say is ridiculously overpowered. They all kind of have the things that they're good at, and they kind of have their things that they counter. It's all just kind of about the matchups, really. Like you look at Warlock, very, very powerful in terms of you can do Handlock, you can do Zoo, you can do whatever you really want with Warlock. It's very powerful. Warrior is very good in control, and you can definitely have a lot of fun just holding back people. Like people can try and rush you down as fast as they can, and that you just can't because the Warrior just has so much bulk to it. You think of the Mage, lots of removal, so much freaking removal. You don't even really know what to do with it all. You think of the Paladin. The Paladin can also be like the Warrior in that it could take a very long time to take them out, or they can go a different route and try and rush you down. Shaman has a bunch of removal. The Rogue is just really kind of bad overall, but every class in Hearthstone is pretty good. If I had to pick one to be the most OP, I'm going to say this is the most annoying class to play against, and that is the Mage. The hero power is very annoying. It pings off your small minions. They have so much ridiculous removal, like fireballs and flame strikes, and blizzards, and oh man, they're ridiculous to play against. And of course they have a bunch of taunt, and they have a bunch of spells that give them armor, and of course make them immune for a turn. And just mages I think are the most annoying to play against, definitely. Next question, he writes, Dear Nero, what is your quote-unquote go-to gun in every Call of Duty game? Why, and what were the attachments on every single one of those? And this person did not leave his or her name, so this is going to be a long answer, I suppose. So I started off in Call of Duty 4. Now, how I'm going to try and envision this is my go-to gun is, let's say I'm playing a game of domination, and we're losing, and time's starting to run out. We need to get some flag captures. We need to start winning. Let's do this. Pulling out my best class. We're about to go crazy on them. I'm about to do this, right? So this is what my go-to guns would be. In Call of Duty 4, if I had a go-to gun, once again, same scenario, domination, need to make the comeback. I'm rushing the B hard as I can. Let's do this. My go-to gun would probably be the AK-74U, and how I run it is no attachments, because you can only have 3 attachments on the guns in that game. You could have silencer, which would reduce the range. You would have a red dot sight, which just looked ugly, and you had ACOG, which, let's face it, is useless on submachine guns. So I always ran my AK-47 and my AK-74U with no attachments in COD 4, and if I stuff's hitting the fan, I'm using the AK-74U, and I'm going to rush in there, and I'm going to try to take people out. And the reason I choose the AK-74U over the MP5 is because the AK-74U has a lot more range, and also has the assault rifle bullet penetration. It has assault rifle style bullet penetration, even though it's a submachine gun, so you can shoot through walls better. It's a lot better down range. Of course, it's not as good like a really close up like an MP5 would be, but overall, my go-to gun I'd say in COD 4 is probably the 74U. Next game, Call of Duty World at War. My go-to gun would be a Thompson with a round drum, just because there's only limited attachments, and of course, you're going to go with the round drum variant of the Thompson. That gun, I love it, man. Great gun. Modern Warfare 2, my go-to gun. Stuff's hitting the fan. Let's do this. What is my go-to weapon in that game? I would say my go-to weapon is a mix. It really is a mix, because the maps, you gotta keep in mind, the Modern Warfare 2 maps are either really big or kind of feel like they're really small. My go-to guns were either the ACR with a red dot sight or a UMP-45 with a silencer. Those would be my two go-to guns in Modern Warfare 2. Next game would be Black Ops. What would my go-to gun in Black Ops be? Well, my go-to gun would be the AK-47 with a dual mag attachment. So the dual mag is pretty cool in that it gives you more ammo to start off with, which is definitely nice, and also makes so every other reload is a little bit faster than the one before it, which makes it so you don't necessarily need to use sleight of hand. You can swap it out for something like Hardened, which is basically the equivalent of Focus or the equivalent of Toughness in today's standards. So I definitely would run the AK-47 with dual mag in Black Ops as my go-to gun. Modern Warfare 3, my go-to weapon would probably once again be a UMP-45 with a silencer. UMP-45 is one of my favorite submachine guns of all Call of Duty. It's definitely a fun gun. Every game it's been in, it's been great, and I always enjoyed using it. What's the next game? Black Ops 2, my go-to gun. Stuff's hitting the fan. We're about to go wild here. So it really kind of depends on the size of the map. Once again, kind of similar to Modern Warfare 2. It would either be an M8A1 with a red dot sight and adjustable stock, or it would be an AN94 with quick draw and adjustable stock. That would be those would be my two go-to guns. It really depend on the map, depend on the situation. But it'd be one of those two guns would be my go-to gun in Black Ops 2. Call of Duty Ghosts, stuff's hitting the fan. What's my go-to gun? I would say my go-to gun in that game would probably be the Ripper. The Ripper was great. I loved using it. I used it a ton. It really kind of died off, especially for for Chem Strike Saturday. Initially, just so many Ripper Chem Strikes were sent in every single week, and then they just kind of died off. Like no one, everyone stopped using that gun. I never really did. You know, I didn't play COD Ghosts a ton as compared to other Call of Duty games, but I did play it quite a bit, especially probably more compared to a lot of other people. And that was like my favorite gun. I loved it, even though it's a DLC gun. I loved that gun. It was great. I used it all the time. So the Ripper would definitely be that gun for me in Call of Duty Ghost. And in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, stuff's hitting the fan. What am I going out with? So you guys know I love the ASM-1. You guys know I love the Speakeasy variant. It's definitely pretty fun, but I just got that thing like, you know, less than a week ago or so. So traditionally, like all throughout the Advanced Warfare life cycle, my go-to gun has probably been the AK-12. That'll probably change in the future. I'll probably switch over to the Speakeasy or probably switch over to something. But right now, it's been the AK-12. It's a very powerful rifle. It's got no recoil. It looks cool. It's a pretty good close range, pretty good long range. It's good wherever you really want it to be. AK-12 is definitely a very, very nice gun overall. I'd say that if I had to pick a go-to for Advanced Warfare, it's probably been the AK-12. So there we go. I think I've covered every Call of Duty that I've actually played, and those are all my go-to guns with attachments for those games. Next and final question. He's going to write, Dear Nero, you talked a lot about the possibility of exosuits becoming a thing in every Call of Duty game going forward, but what do you think about this possibility, and do you want to have exosuits in every Call of Duty game going forward? Gifted Sloth from Australia. So, Mr. Sloth, it's a tough one. It's definitely a tough one. So what we've done, what has effectively happened here in Advanced Warfare is we've changed the game a little bit. We're able to move faster. It feels way different than the other Call of Duty game. Just to be able to dash. You see my gameplays. I dash around all the time. It's just something I do now. You know, it's become part of my Call of Duty playstyle. And it is going to feel weird if the next Treyarch game does not have some form of exosuit, but also runs down the line of every game can't possibly have exosuits, right? If every game were to have exosuits or an equivalent thereof the exosuit, then every single game, in terms of the campaign, you are very limited in what you can actually do with it. That makes it so every game has to be semi-futuristic to be able to have these exosuits in there, which makes it, from a creative standpoint, every single story, and like the single player, the whole point of the game, like, you think of the point of like the original Black Ops. It was Cold War in Vietnam, and we're going through it and stuff like that. Like the whole story of the game has to revolve in some way around these exosuits for them to actually show up in the multiplayer, which sounds pretty weird. It really kind of handcuffs the developers a whole lot. I honestly think that exosuits are going to be a one-time thing. They may show up as a standard for the Sledgehammer Call of Duty games, or maybe Infinity Ward, because Infinity Ward's probably desperate to get any kind of fans they can get back. Perhaps Infinity Ward will hop on that bandwagon, but I don't think every Call of Duty game going forward is going to have exosuits. I just don't see it I don't see it working from a creative standpoint. I really don't see it working that way. If it did, fine. I don't care whether or not they're in the game, because I enjoy them. But I've also said many times I also enjoy the old style. You know, this is the first time we've ever had exosuits, and to try and kid ourselves into saying that we cannot imagine life without these exosuits again would just be silly, right? It's like riding a bike. I'm sure if we were to go back to Black Ops 2 today, which a lot of you guys apparently are playing that. 100,000 people were playing that the other day. Did you know? I got people sending me pictures of it all the time now. A lot of people still play Black Ops 2, and I'm sure after playing Advanced Warfare for roughly a month and a half now that it's been out, if I were to go back to Black Ops 2, it'd feel weird for the first few games. It would feel weird not being able to double jump. It'd feel weird not being able to dash when I want to go forward a little bit faster. It would feel weird. But it'd be like riding a bike. I've been playing Call of Duty for 7+ years now. I would get right back into the swing of things pretty quickly, and the entire Call of Duty community would as well. So it's not a must-have thing by no means, but I'd take it. Take it or leave it. Doesn't matter. You can keep them in the game. You can take them out of the game for next games. I don't care. I like exosuits, but I also like the old style. So I really don't care if they have exosuits in the next game or not. But I definitely don't think that they will in all future Call of Duty games going forward. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes this week's episode of Dear Nero. We had a lot of good questions this week. I'm sorry for questions not get answered, but so many of you guys want to know about Grand Theft Auto and the Heists that really kind of consumed a lot of the submissions that were sent in this week. So I had to go through and read all of those, man. That was a whole lot of them. But that was this week's episode of Dear Nero. If you guys would like to submit your guys' questions for next week's episode of Dear Nero and possibly be featured on next week's show, this is how you do it. So you go to my YouTube channel, go to the About tab. There's a little About tab down there you can click on, and down towards the bottom, if you scroll down, you will find a Send Message button. From there, send me your question. I go through them all at the end of the week. Keep in mind Wednesdays. Wednesdays is when Dear Nero goes up, and Wednesday is when I read the questions. Wednesdays when I read the questions. Wednesdays when I make the video. Wednesdays when I upload it. So Wednesday is the day. So chances are, if you're sending it in like late on Wednesday, like, oh, I'm going to submit my Dear Nero question at 4 p.m. on a Wednesday, chances are I'm not going to read it. Chances are that's not going to end up happening. So try and send it in sometime throughout the week, sometime before Wednesday, and I definitely will read it. I do read through every single question, and if I feel as though it fits well into the show, I will feature it on next week's episode of Dear Nero. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to leave a rating. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day.